Kojima has announced basically a new not Metal Gear Solid, an evolution of the tactical espionage action genre in this year's first state of play. And I came to a realization that I need to talk about because I no longer have the trust in Kojima that I once did. And that worries me. And allow me to explain. Firstly, hi, I'm Mug Thief. It's good to see you, unless you're new, in which case, welcome. I talk about things I care about on my YouTube channel, and we need to talk about the state of Kojima and of Sony with the state of play today. So, hope you enjoy. The state of play, which is, this showcase event, they show us all of the new things that Sony has planned for the rest of the year, or for X amount of time, and they give us cool announcements. And it did indeed finish with Kojima announcing that in partnership with Sony, not just the games part, but Sony, the movie part and the music part, working on a new tactical espionage action game. And that's really cool. I'm very happy for Kojima. But also, I am not excited about this game at all. And this is coming from somebody with a Metal Gear Solid tattoo. I cannot overstate how important the Metal Gear Solid franchise is to me personally. I am what many would call, many years ago, a Kojima fanboy. But this is strange. And don't worry, we're going to talk about the whole event in itself, because I think the general theme of this state of play was, do you remember this other game? Cool, now look at this new one. And that didn't leave me with a good feeling as a brand new PlayStation 5 owner. Also, before somebody tells me I'm an Xbot or something, no, I do not own an Xbox. I own a PC and a PlayStation 5 and I have a Metal Gear tattoo. Leave me alone. The console wars thing. We're just talking about games, okay? I talk about games. I don't care what console they're on. It's that simple. So let's talk about Kojima first. We got a approximately 2 hours long trailer for Death Stranding 2, which looks absolutely bonkers. Like, as you might expect if you've played Death Stranding 1, it's insanity and confusing and it kind of cool, but also insane. The insanity is an important part of this. It felt overly long and confusing in ways that I'm sure were deliberate. But after that, Kojima came out to talk about how this new tactical espionage game that he's making with the support of Sony Pictures and Sony Music and leveraging everything regarding Sony is meant to push the genre forward, but also is an interactive game. This is something he said. He had to clarify this, and then he moved on to say that it's going to break down the barriers, transcend the difference between a movie and a game. I do not like where this is headed. So Kojima has always been a movie lover, ever since the beginning of his career, and while this isn't a Kojima retrospective, although that might need to happen one day, basically from when this man started making games, he's been obsessed with films, and it's very clear. And if you've played Metal Gear Solid or anything in the franchise, you know how much he loves films. But once he got bigger and bigger and bigger, I feel like a lot of his obsession with film turned into an obsession with Hollywood. I mean, you can look at the Xbox project and him and Jordan Peele during the Game Awards just kind of talking to each other about how much they love each other, I guess. But this is a man who adores films and wants to make things that are closer to films, and I have never really thought that's the strength of video games. Now, that wasn't a problem before, because as many cinematic elements as he put into his games, they were still graphically incredible, they had really interesting, crazy, and emotional stories, and top-tier gameplay. Always. From Metal Gear Solid all the way to Metal Gear Solid 5, everything in the Metal Gear franchise has exceptional quality in gameplay, especially Metal Gear Solid 5, which had the whole Fox engine developed for it, and then thrown away into the gutter that is Pro Evolution Soccer. And it's a crime that I will never forgive Konami for. But it isn't new for him to want to break down this barrier of film and games. But I've also kind of never felt it to be more out of place. Death Stranding is a Hollywood fan fest of celebrities and who's walking around in this crazy auteur story that also contains some actually interesting gameplay that I think is fun if you're into it. It's very particular, but it's creative, it's different, and it is a technically very impressive game to play. And if his new tactical espionage action game still contains those elements, I'll be happy. If the gameplay department does actually push things forward and contains real good gameplay, that'll be fantastic, for sure. But how much of that Hollywood is going to bleed into it? Because I keep getting the feeling that the more money we give Kojima, the crazier he decides to go for it. As if he's gonna turn around one day and say like, no, this is never meant to mean anything. I just wanted to see what I could get away with and have all of you still call me a genius or something. Like he's pulling the most elaborate prank in the world sometimes. And that made me realize that while for a time, this announcement would have been the most exciting thing I could have heard as a Kojima fan and as a fan of video games in general, as somebody who grew up on Metal Gear Solid, now it's not. Because what is this game gonna be? It doesn't matter that Kojima comes out and says this is an evolution of this genre. It doesn't matter that he's telling us this is tactical espionage action by me. Further, this is not Metal Gear. Is it though? Or is it gonna be a bunch of Hollywood actors talking for 3 hours and then the gameplay is meant to also blend into the cutscenes or something? How am I supposed to trust you now, Kojima? So I think the safest thing that I can do, and that you can do, if you're a person like me that loves Metal Gear Solid and loves Kojima, is to set your expectations low. That way, hopefully, if we are disappointed, it doesn't hurt. But I hope I'm getting my point across, that as much as this man has always done this, has always been pushing for that more movie-like experience, there is a breaking point for me where not only does that tip over too much, but is also just not the direction I think is the most appealing for video games. Here's a quick example. Everybody that's played Metal Gear Solid 1 remembers some stuff from it, but if I think everybody remembers one thing, it's Psycho Mantis. And for as cinematic as the experience of the Psycho Mantis fight is, people remember it because he read your memory card. And that's a great example of putting in something really dramatic and cool that is exclusive to that interactive element of video games. I hope he hasn't forgotten that. Kojima, you no longer have my blind faith. You're gonna have to earn my trust. Now, everything else in the showcase, oof, this is a tough thing to go through. But just like Kojima came out to say, hey, do you remember Metal Gear? Well, I'm making a game like it. And also came out to say, hey, do you remember Death Stranding? We're making another one of those. A lot of what happened during the State of Play felt very similar. Helldivers 2 looks great, but Stellar Blade was pretty much, hey, do you remember Nier Automata? Well, we're doing something kind of like that. Now, I can't judge it too harshly because it's a South Korean studio, and the last time that a South Korean studio did something that seemed heavily inspired by a different studio, it was Lies of P. And we all know that game is amazing. So Stellar Blade could very well be excellent. I'm definitely keeping an eye on this one, and I really can't swing either way in if I think it's gonna be good, if I think it's gonna be bad. I think it's gonna be pretty decent, but could be incredible. Who knows? I don't know anymore. South Korea has me confused after Lies of P. But hey guys, do you remember Sonic Generations? Well, now it's that, but with Shadow. Hey guys, do you remember Splatoon? Well, what if instead of paint it were foam? I'm sorry, Square Enix has gone on public record of being like, please stop comparing us to Splatoon, but there's a reason for it, Square. Then we got announcements for games that have been on PC for a while, like Dave the Diver and V Rising. And then we got Silent Hill: The Short Message, which is like, hey, do you remember PT? That was a first-person Silent Hill thing that was a shadow drop and free to play. We did it again, guys. But this time it's official, instead of whatever Kojima did outside of the rules of Konami. Do you guys remember Silent Hill 2? Well, you're gonna want to keep remembering that original one, because this one looks really bad. Can't believe they released a trailer that looks like this, and seems to play like this, the year after Dead Space, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Alan Wake 2. People were really skeptical of how Silent Hill 2 by Bloober was going to look, and it turns out it doesn't look very good, at least in my opinion. I hope this is still very early in development. Do you guys remember BioShock? Well, here's Judas, which is kind of like that. I mean, that's good. Nobody has really tried to copy BioShock's combat. The whole style of BioShock / System Shock, the entire Shock thing, has been done, and they are very influential games, but the combat systems, that first-person kind of magic slinging, very kinetic action, creativity, using the environment, a lot of mobility, hasn't really been done in a single-player game since BioShock Infinite, in my opinion. So, it's good that this game exists, but it's still just BioShock. Then we got a couple of VR games, which is great for people who like VR. I like VR, but I don't have a PSVR 2, and I should update my headset, and I had to buy a PS5 before the headset priorities got to be set at some point. But the big stinker for me was Rise of the Ronin, a game that I was really excited for. And look, yes, the joke is, do you remember Ghost of Tsushima? Well, here's Rise of the Ronin. But the truth is, these are very different studios. This is Team Ninja collaborating with Sony, but you can't really get away from open world samurai in Japan is gonna draw comparisons, and there's stuff in this game like the UI and some elements of it that just feel like it was made basing its design off of Assassin's Creed 2 and then mashed into Neo. It doesn't look great. It has me a bit worried. I do like everything about the storytelling and the direction that that seems to be going in, because I love me some excessively dramatic anime moments in my games, and this looks like it has that. And I'm sure the gameplay is going to lean more towards that Souls-like Neo-esque feel, because that's what we see in the gameplay at least. And it could be a great game. It could contain a lot of very interesting things. It could even be a cult classic, but it definitely is lacking a certain AAA polish and sheen that I thought it would have more of. And maybe when it comes to playing the game itself, it feels great, but there's something in the way that it looks aesthetically, especially just something in the UI that drags it a bit down for me. So I'm still very curious, and I'm still gonna play it, but after watching the trailer for State of Play, coming out the same day as Dragons Dogma 2, I would like to review both of these games this year. I think they're both big hitters. My priorities are definitely gonna be on Dragons Dogma. And that's kind of what I mean. That it's just a lot of, do you remember this? Well, now look at this. Man, Sony, I'm pretty sure Sony did a really good investment on that timed exclusivity for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let's put it that way. 2024 is probably still going to be an amazing year for video games, but this was a weak showing to start off with. So I guess that's my take. But really, this video is about how I feel regarding Kojima. So there you go. Anyways, I've been Mug Thief. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you like, say, more personal, more balanced takes on the state of gaming and what's coming up, remember to subscribe. It means so much more than you know. Also, Sony said nothing about Pal World, which a lot of people are angry about. Just gotta put that out there. I've been Mug Thief. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon.